All right, welcome back, everyone. This is another the Facebook Live Golden V podcast, and I'm joined today by WLA Commissioner Paul Dal Monte to talk about the 2024 WLA season. Paul, how are you?
I'm doing great on a Saturday morning. How are you?
Really good. Really good. Just wanted to sort of get this started because obviously the WLA season has started, right? And so let's just dive right in because I'm just going to swap you around on the audio here so that you're big and I'm small because we're here to talk about you and the WLA. We don't need to see me that much. But let's get started. So week one has started. I'm going to share the picture that I had pulled down here because I have a list of the home openers. And so let's start with the home openers, and you can give me a little background on those. And then we'll dive into a few other topics that I sent to you. I pulled down the stuff about sponsors. I pulled down the stuff about the games this week. So if you could see that, why don't you give me a little breakdown on the home openers?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. So we had Salmon Bellies start the season off. Burnaby visited historic Queens Park Arena and
Right.
For our first game, so it's good. There's a ton of kids in the building at New West. They do such a great job with their minor program, so the building was loud and a bunch of screaming kids that were having a great time. And
Great.
Salmon Bellies came out ahead in game one to open the season. Coquitlam was in Burnaby last night and lost a close one, 12-11. And tonight they're back at home and they host the Nanaimo Timbermen. So we're off to a back-to-back start, and then of course the Shamrocks are playing this evening. Played last night as well, right. And they beat the Thunder 12-6. I forgot the road game. And of course, Sunday, Maple Ridge opens their schedule with a visit by the Victoria Shamrocks. So a good start to the season. We're back to back, but it's great to get going again for sure. We're excited about the season. We had a great finish to last year with sold out playoff games between New West and Langley. And some great lacrosse. And then, of course, the Mann Cup, although the results weren't what we wanted, it was certainly a great showcase for the game in 5 sellout nights at Queens Park Arena against Six Nations. And so, the journey begins again for us in trying to get off to a good start and send a positive, strong representative back east to play the Eastern champion for the Mann Cup in September.
Yeah, and I was going to share while we go through some of the stuff for the start of the season and some of the games. I was at the Mann Cup last year, and I can't remember the exact game, but I know that it was a game that Six Nations, I think, won, a close one, and it was, I don't know if it was game 2 or game 3, but one thing I remember being struck by, and I've said this to a few other people in the lacrosse world, I've had some various people on this show with Brad Challoner from TSN, and obviously Brad's doing WLA stuff this season. Brad Midsky, who was on a couple weeks ago, I don't think he's playing to start the season for New West this year. And obviously you have your Vancouver Warriors relationship, which we're going to talk a little bit about. But one thing I remember about that series was the loud, boisterous Six Nations fans and their drumming. And so that has stuck with me ever since. And I've mentioned that to various people. Some people have laughed at it. Some people have just kind of went, okay. And so that's one interesting fact that I had from the Mann Cup. And so that's just something that I wanted to share. Now, let's get a little bit into some of the stuff that we've had in the notes. Let's talk a little bit about the sponsorships, because that's really key. And that was one of the press releases that I read. Give us a little bit of the breakdown on your guys' relationship with the Vancouver Warriors.
Yeah. So Jason Thorne is the new, VP of business for the Warriors, and our partnership started a year ago formally with right. Warriors in terms of relationship. Where from their perspective, we're providing some value and access to a very strong, passionate, loyal fan base because, of course, so many of the players that play in the NLL and the Vancouver Warriors are playing in our league on a regular basis, right, as they compete for Mann Cup. So there was a natural fit and synergy there. Yeah. And for us, it's important to align with our local NLL club. We want to be seen as being supportive and collaborative. And leverage their fan base as well as ours to,
Right.
grow the game, grow the fan base, grow attendance for them, and certainly grow attendance and awareness for us. And so
Right.
it seems logical, seemed like a good fit. The relationship started, back in the day under Dan Richardson, who was a
Of
former
course.
governor here with the Samabellis, and it's carried forward under the new regime here with Kurt Milosky leading the charges and stuff. And so we're thrilled to have that partnership. It means a lot to have a traditional league like the Western Lacrosse Association partner with the National Lacrosse League and our home team that we want to make sure we support and help to grow their audience in the game, because we both mutually benefit from a large, stronger fan base.
Yeah, and I would concur with that. And I was at some Warriors games this season, and I don't know how closely you followed. I know you've got a lot of stuff going on. You mentioned having another sort of career outside of being the WLA commissioner. But I was pretty excited about the Warriors season from the way it started to the way it ended. And I actually just PVR'd the NLL championship too, so I could finish watching that. So I think there's a real good marriage there with you guys. I mean, it seems so obvious to me when there's so many players and so many people involved with the WLA. When they're not playing in the NLL, it was almost like it was too easy for you guys to establish that. And I think momentum could be carried. And I want your thoughts from a successful WLA season this season with you guys kicking off to right into the Warriors season and seeing what they can do with their turnaround they had at the end of the season at 6-2.
Yeah, no, and no surprise, I mean, it's gonna be a tough slog, and Kurt is a good man to be able to lead the Chargers and turn that ship around, and so it's a gradual process in the NLL because it is such a competitive league, and on any given night,
Right.
the team with the ball last is going to be the team that wins, and so is the difference between top teams and middle to bottom teams is
Right.
not as great as perhaps the standings would indicate. So Kurt and his coaching staff and the management team, they're going to do a good job in turning the tides here and
I would agree with
developing
that.
a playoff contender. But things take time, right? It's an ebb and
Yeah, it
flow,
does.
drafting and nurturing young talent, which I think they've done a good job of. And so, they'll get to a point very quickly that they'll be a playoff contender and a team that'll, I know ultimately try to compete for a championship in the NLL.
Right. Let's go through a couple more here, because you had Johnston Meyer Insurance Agency groups for you guys. You had JM Media Group, who I've heard of, and Extreme Threads, who's a family-owned and operated custom uniform and apparel company. Can you share maybe a few thoughts about having those guys on board as well?
Yeah, Johnson Meyer Insurance Group and of course JM Media have been partners for a couple of years now, and you'll see them around some of our arenas. So they're
Right.
very community minded and understand the value of our one of our national sports, and so their investment with us is about growing the game. It is about connecting with our audience and making sure that they are contributing back to the community like so many of our teams and players do. And so their angle there is generous and community based, and we respect that. And Extreme, of course, has been a local company for years. It provides uniforms, and they're the official uniform provider for the league. And so we have a great relationship with them. They support our officials as well as our, event staff and things like that. So again, good to work with strong local companies that want to support us and see the growth of the game. And they're partners for the right reason. And we couldn't exist as a league without their generous support.
That's great. Thank you. I just wanted to go through a couple of other things with you, because there's something that struck me. I know you and I talked about this before in the WLA, and actually I had to learn this because I didn't know it. It's not 4 15-minute quarters like the NLL. It's 3 20 minutes. And I remember you said to me, I think once a long time ago, that you're not using any music in the WLA, right? So there's no kind of interruption. And I don't need the music either. And I remember you and I had talked about that when we met last year. And that comment really stayed with me, because I was like, oh, okay, he doesn't prefer to have music in games, and I don't need it either. So I wanted your thoughts sort of on some different rules that people should be aware of.
Yeah, and so in terms on the rules side of things, we're very closely aligned with the NLL rules. Coming out of the pandemic, a group of individuals across the country got together and formed a rules committee to look at our game and to see what we can do to modernize it. We didn't want to come out of a 2-year absence and have the same old, same old. And so that rules committee was representative of players, Hall of Fame coaches, managers, commissioners, and so we had good representation. So Brett Mitski, I believe, was one of the guys on the call. So we had goalies, defenders. Curtis Dixon was on the rules committee. Cody Jamieson out of Six Nations was on the rules committee. So we had a lot of healthy discussion. At the end of the day, without going into the details, we aligned ourselves very closely with NLL rules for the most part. So we changed the game a little bit, and so in that regard, it improved the game, made it more consistent for our players, more consistent for our fans, and more consistent for our officials to manage and monitor. In terms of the music and game presentation, I understand the NLL is doing that. My personal feeling.
Right, that's what you said to me.
Yeah, I mean, and our teams play music at stoppages, and you might hear an organ at Queens Park Arena and stuff like that, like a traditional hockey organ. But at the end of the day, our arenas are slightly different. Our fans are a little closer, and I think the sounds of the game are what they hear. They hear the feet squeaking on the wooden floor or on the cement floor. They hear the sounds of the players and the voices. And for me, again, my personal opinion, I understand the NLL. They want to amp up the game presentation. I personally think the music during the course of a game, especially when it's too loud, detracts from the actual game. The game is good on its own and doesn't require the distraction of music being overplayed. That's, again, my personal opinion. Our league is determined that it's best just to allow the game to be played and listen and allow the fans to engage. And so if you're at Queens Park Arena, you hear the guys on the floor, you hear the pounding of the feet on the wooden floor, you hear all of that, and you're part of the game a little more. And so, we're a little more traditional, and we stuck with the original three periods as opposed to 4 quarters as deployed by the NL.
Yeah, and for me doing the podcast and trying to reacquaint myself with lacrosse, having played a bit as a kid, and having a real passion for the game and really caring about it. That's why I do these podcasts, with trying to expand the breadth of not just doing like Canucks hockey all the time, like a lot of podcasts do. And I think the game is really critical. And I was fascinated by the Mann Cup last year when I attended, and then going to Warriors games ever since they'd moved to Rogers Arena, obviously with the purchase from the Aquilinis, obviously the rebrand from the Stealth. And I'm like, I wouldn't even want to find out and learn about this game and how valuable it is. And I don't feel like I need the music either. I'm so focused on trying to learn the rules and trying to understand why they're doing what they're doing. Right. And why why they're on the floor with this strategy and that strategy and that strategy. And so that's sort of my goal, in talking to you today and coming to the games. And I feel like I went to Queens Park Arena last year, not just for the Mann Cup. I saw the home opener with my friend Earl Thomas, and I should mention him because he was on this podcast. He's a voiceover guy. He helped me for season 2 doing lacrosse and Warrior stuff. He's from Nanaimo, so he's a Timberman guy. So we went to watch the Timbermen play the Bellies last year, and I was right back into it as soon as I stepped into Queens Park. And then obviously there for the that Mann Cup game and actually that Thunder playoff game too. So I see the value of the game and I see how special it is, and it means a lot to me personally. But let's keep moving because there's a couple other things we talked about: sponsorships. We talked a little bit about the rules. What can you tell us for this season, do you think, about teams and players to watch for? Let's start with teams, because we know about New West and Langley last year, right? And I wouldn't call it their dominance, but the quality of their play, how well the Bellies played. I remember Earl telling me he didn't think they were necessarily going to be the best team in the WLA last year, and then they were in the Mann Cup.
Yep. And so the beauty of our league, at least historically in my tenure here. So I started in 2017, but what you'll see is, year over year is a league that's competitive, and where there have been 4 or 5 teams vying in the final weeks for first to fourth place in our playoff spots. And so,
Right.
unlike our counterparts in the MSL, who traditionally have had two teams that have represented the East, either Peterborough or Six Nations, in the past dozen or so years in the Mann Cup. We've had a number of teams join,
Right.
or at least.
Yeah.
So New
Sorry, go
West
ahead.
has been in the Mann Cup twice
Right.
in the several years. Maple Ridge is represented, Langley's represented, Victoria's represented. So, our league is competitive, balanced. There's parity, and
Which
so
is great.
it's hard to pick a team, to be honest. But I would suggest that we're going to see this, a group of teams all vying in the course of the first month of the season to fight for playoff spots. And so you'll see a league that's close and competitive. And
Right.
it would be difficult for me to even predict who's going to be the team traveling east for the Mann Cup this year. It's I think our league is the strength of it is the parity that you'll see on a week by week basis.
Yeah, and I think that's really important and really valuable. For me personally, trying to relearn the game, played it as a kid. My dad coached. I played for Burnaby Minor. I played with wooden sticks, right? So it's come a long way since then, and this has really sort of reawoken watching the Warriors for me, coming back to the sport and just how fast and hard hitting it is. And honestly, for me too, what I saw with the games, like when we met up last year in front of Queens Park Arena, was the quality of the entertainment for the price, right? Because how expensive Canucks tickets are. I don't know if you saw what they were like in the playoffs. You got the BC Lions starting. We're going to have some people from the BC Lions on the show. You got the Vancouver Canadians who've been going, and their tickets start at $20. So I personally think that the WLA provides huge entertainment value for not much money.
Indeed, there were, I'm going to say several hundred kids in the building at Queens Park Arena the other night. And so I'll use that as a reference because I was there, and it's just, there's some, a ton of heritage and tradition there. So you're right. When when you're at a playoff game or a Mann Cup game in that venue, it oozes tradition and heritage, right? The building and the teams playing. And so I think it's a great venue, but there are some good venues. If you go into Victoria, you're going to get a good, passionate, knowledgeable fan base. So at the end of the day, our fans, they know the game, they know the players, they're loyal, passionate fans that support what I agree is great entertainment value for a family to get out and watch a game.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I got one more thing for you, and then we'll wrap it up there. Thank you for doing this. It's really appreciated. It's really appreciated, and I'm, even further engaged now, and maybe it's just me, because of attending last year's Mann Cup. I'm curious to know what you think, if there's going to be an uptick in attendance given the way, the pandemic happened. They shut the NLL down. They shut the WLA down for 2 years, right? I mean, then it comes back in 2022, and then you guys host the Mann Cup last year. What do you think it's going to be like this season in terms of attendance? Because I know I want to attend, but that's just me.
Understood. Yeah, you're right. We're attempting to ride some of that momentum. The lacrosse was great. I can't tell you how many people I ran into that were fans over the course of the off season that were at the final month of the season and saw some of those games and how competitive they were and just the passion in the building and so tons of positive comments and I think there's people see the value in our game, the value of ticket prices, the fact that our players are the best in the world. They're NLL players that are playing a traditional summer sport for the right to compete for what I believe is one of the most iconic trophies in sport, and certainly in lacrosse in the Mann Cup. And so it does mean something to them. When they do play, they're playing because they love the game and they want to compete. I think that earns fans respect of our players and our teams and what they do and how hard they work and the entertainment value. And so, I think we're going to do well. We had a good crowd in Queens Park, a good crowd in Burnaby last night. I'm sure Coquitlam's home will be the same. And so we'll ride that momentum and continue to work hard in our social media and chatting and engaging with fans and doing things like this on your podcast to make sure that,
which is really appreciated.
people know we're accessible, and our players are accessible, and our game is a great way to spend a summer evening watching lacrosse.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Paul. We're going to wrap it up here. Just want to say thanks again for joining in. Just a few little tidbits here for everybody. Feel free to check out the Western Lacrosse Association's website, HTTPS. Obviously, I'll just keep it simple here. www.wlalacrosse.com/home is the one thing I have up here. I've also got the Golden View podcast to mention if you need to catch up on previous episodes, including season 3, episode 26, that I recorded on May 15th with Brett Midsky from the Vancouver Warriors. And our page is goldenviewpodcast.ca, and also on Facebook, facebook.com/Golden View Podcast. So with that, I'm signing off, saying thanks to Paul, and I'll talk to everyone soon.